Going live. You are now live. Going live. Whoa, that was very good. That all worked at the same time, I think. Good evening, folks. It's 5:30. It's Wednesday, which means it's Q&A time from Arena Studio Land. And I love the Q&As because it's great to hear from everybody and we all have a little bit of fun while we're doing it. Today's topic, top 10 tips to improve your guitar technique. 10 tips that hopefully are going to be of use to some of you, if not all of you. Okay, and I'm not going to mess around. I'm going to get straight into it. So number one for me on my top 10 tips to improve your guitar technique is to avoid left hand tension. That's one of the biggest things that I see that restricts everybody's progress is too much tension in this left hand. A quick way of seeing how much you need to get a note to ring cleanly on the guitar is actually play a note, release the tension, so you get this type of thing, and then just add a little bit on till you get the note to ring again, and you'll find that there's a difference, quite a dramatic difference between the initial fretting of the note, release, and then back on till it just rings out. And that's the maximum amount of tension that you need to get that note to ring true. So think about your tension with your left hand. If you are using this vice-like grip on the chords and everything, it's going to hinder your progress. So make sure that you focus on being tension-free with this left hand, and we'll touch on that a little bit later on. So that's tip number one, which is a very, very important tip in my opinion. Tip number two. I've noticed I've got my poppy on there today. I'm a good boy. Well done, Chris. Tip number two is to practice standing up and sitting down. And when we think about it, most of us will probably sit in the bedroom or living room or wherever we practice. And evening, Mark Dunn, nice to see you there in Facebook land. I'm doing Facebook. Hello, who's this? I'm going to wave to you because you're a new one. Thank you. Hello, people. It's great to see people joining on board because I'm doing YouTube, Instagram and Facebook all at the same time on 3 devices. So if I look like I'm doing a bit of this, it's because I am. So tip number two, practice standing up and sitting down. The reason why is we actually all end up spending most of the time focusing on playing things comfortably sat down. And then what happens is when we actually stand up, the position of the guitar changes to more like this for when we're on stage. Now, that might not seem much to you, but that actually has quite an impact on the technique that you're using. For me, I find that if I'm being honest, I always practice everything standing up. I find that transfers better to sitting down than actually practicing everything sitting down and then standing up. So I would try and split your routines. Some days do sitting, some days do standing, and these slight variances in the shape and the modeling of the position of the guitar is the problem that causes you to not make as much progress. A classic example was years ago. I was in a music shop with a drummer in the band that was with Charlie, and I sat down and he said to me, "Why don't you play Eruption like you do at rehearsals and all this type of stuff?" And I went, "I can't play it sitting down." And it was one of those moments that made me realize that actually, yeah, when I'm standing, the technique varies slightly. So you need to vary your practice opportunities with sitting and standing. So it's a great little tip, that again. Tip number three, speed. Oh, the famous word speed that we all look for as guitar players at some point. Speed is not the issue. Speed comes from correct practice. The most important part of what you're doing is to try and make sure that you've got accuracy and less tension. If you play and practice like that, then you'll find that the speed thing will come automatically. It's like a byproduct. So don't spend your days aiming to be the fastest guitar player and get 50 million notes per second. It's not what it's all about. It's all about creating content that is pleasurable to listen to with flurries of speed, and if you're struggling to play chord progressions at quick speeds, then slow down. There's nothing clever in trying to drill these things where you're struggling and you're stressing yourself out with it because you can't reach those goals of moving the speed along. Just back things off, get it right, get it accurate, and get it all into place, and then just build speed gradually over time. Okay. Tip number 4. use correct fingering. And this is, oh dear, here we go. And this is one of those things that I see with every single student that I work with in the studio when we're working on some guitar stuff. Here's a classic example of what I mean. We don't tend to play efficiently, you know, and especially the younger students. Like if I get some of the kids that come in and they start off, this is the type of thing that they'll do. They'll actually play everything with one finger and slide it around. Well, you've got 4 fingers, so use all 4 fingers. You know, make sure that what you're playing is efficient. You know, the whole skill element of playing a guitar and playing an instrument well is to make sure that everything is synchronized and done with the minimum amount of effort. So tension is effort. You know, speed is effort. Misfingering is effort. So again, the other things to focus on is make sure that, you know, if you are going, it's probably more cost effective energy wise and movement wise to do that rather than sliding up to your notes, you know, and using one finger. So think about the effectiveness and efficiency of the route, the pathway that you're using when you're going to play anything, and use that to your advantage. Okay. Number 5, silent rehearsing. Now, the camp's out on silent rehearsing a little bit, because what is silent rehearsing? Well, some guys will swear by this, that they'll sit in front of the TV and they'll play things with the guitar on the lap and watch TV and all this type of stuff. Now, I do think there's an element of success to be had from this, because I do think that anything that creates any repetitive movement is going to instill a pathway and get that movement to flow better. Whether I can do it constantly, I would say I probably can't, because if there's something on the TV, my brain just focuses on what's on the TV, really. But some guys find that they can utilize that skill and just sit. I mean, even if you're making chord shapes, you're actually training that left hand to land on those positions. So I do say that there is an element of gain from what we call silent rehearsing, where you're watching TV and you're not plugged in with your amps or anything like that. So try it, and if it works for you, that's brilliant. If it doesn't, then find another solution. So that was number 5, silent rehearsing, working on your left hand. Number 6, metronomes. Oh yes, the old tick, tick, tickety tick. The bane of my life as a guitar player, metronomes have been, but the most valuable tool you can get, I think, when it comes to working on timing and building speed. If we go back to speed, you know, always play everything that you're practicing perfectly. If you're practicing anything and it's got a mistake in it, you're too fast. Get that metronome on, that click, 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 because that's going to make sure that what you're playing over and over for repetition is exactly the same time. So what we don't realize is that if we were to play a scale, say we did something like this, say we played a little scale, you would find that without the metronome, you've got all these little idiosyncrasies in there, which would, if I emphasize them, it would probably go something like this. You know, you've got variances in speed and dynamics. What a metronome will do is it will keep that, every note the same duration of what you're working on. So that's the idea of the metronome, and it gives you these reference points of now, where you actually resync what you're playing into that beat, that timing. So that's why it can shorten the length of amount of practice that you have to put in. The metronome keeps it consistent, and then your brain starts to absorb the repetitions, and it goes, I know what this is. We've been there before. It's this consistent da, da, da. But when you've got the idiosyncrasies in there, every time you play one, that's one thing that your brain is trying to learn. The next time you might go, that's another one. So there's 3 examples of playing the same scale with variations in timing. Those are what slow you down. The metronome eliminates those, and therefore you make gains quicker. Okay, so work with your metronomes, or if you haven't got a metronome, do like I do, and just go on to Spotify, YouTube. I've got some tracks out there myself. Find a track of a nice tempo, of a nice key that you want to work on, and play it to a track, because most modern produced tracks now are recorded with drum machines. There's some great samplers out there that knock a kit together that sounds as good as anything. So you don't need to worry about timing. The producers that make these things will lock them to a grid, literally a metronome in the recording studio, and then you've got this floored drum beat that's bang on as accurate as a metronome. So I now use a lot of backing tracks, because for my own purposes it feels more musical than just click, click, click. So I tend to like to practice over a backing track. And then I'll find various tempos of the backing tracks and use it to my advantage that way. So that's a good little tip to have a go at. So that was number 6. So here's another thing. Number 7, don't shy away from difficult chords. Something that we tend to do a lot is avoid the chords that we can't play, which restricts your progress again. So for an example, say we were in the key of G major and we were playing G major, C major, D major. All pretty standard chords, okay? And then you suddenly got to change to a B minor. And we jump onto a bar chord, B minor. If you can't play a bar chord or a B minor shape, you're in trouble. You're not going to practice or learn that piece of music that's got that in. You'll look for something that's just basically got C's, G's and D's in, or any other chords that you're working on in your progression. And it's this missing element of practicing the chords that you find difficult that then unlock that song that you're trying to learn, and a load of other songs as well, because they've all got similar chord progressions in a certain key, So that's the one that I tend to see a lot, where most people won't learn a bar chord because it's difficult, So face those fears and have a little go at the difficult chords and put time in them. Spend an evening just working on the shapes and see how you go. And again, unlocking those chords that are virtually impossible for you to play become easy, like the original chords. When you first start out, a G chord is a nightmare for you. So is a C chord. You think, oh, I'm never going to play this. But once you've got those under your fingers, it's just the next level is to apply more difficult chords and get that repertoire in your chord arsenal of difficult chords, which then unlocks the whole instrument for you with more difficult songs. And you then become a guitar god. Okay, so that was number 7. Number 8, disciplined practice. That is the thing as well, is that we're all guilty of, and again, this goes back to which one was it? Number 5, silent rehearsing. I would find that virtually impossible to practice in front of the TV. Some guys can do it and love it and they make great results, get great results from it. But me, I have to be disciplined with my practice. So if I'm working on economy picking, say, or any rhythmic patterns, I will practice those religiously most days. Sometimes I'll miss a couple of days over a weekend, but the rest of the time, when I get the opportunity, I'm on it, and I'll practice for maybe 45 minutes each day on the problem or the thing that I'm trying to get down. So you have to be disciplined with practice on an instrument. It's the same as a lot of things in life. You only get out of it what you put in it. And if you're prepared to practice once a week, you're going to be years and years and years before you start to see your progress. So I would look at the options of getting practice schedules in place, and log it down and know what you're going to pick to play each time you pick that guitar up. It could be chords. So you think, right, I'm struggling with this chord. I'm going to learn this B minor bar chord, and I'm going to practice it for 45 minutes every single day till I've got that nailed. Then look at your next problem and your next problem and so on. So having a routine on your practice is, again, paramount to me. It's priceless, because you know what you're going to be playing every day that you pick that guitar up, and that structure becomes a regular habit then, and that's when you make your progress again. Okay, so that's your discipline practice is number 8. Number 9, sore fingers. What do we do when we get sore fingers and we're starting out on a guitar, possibly, or we've been playing for a while, or we've had a break? And for me, I used to have this little bit of a hang up of taking guitars on holiday whenever I could. Because I thought, if I don't practice for a few days, I'm going to get sore fingers, and then that's a nightmare. Do you know what? It's part and parcel of being a guitar player. We do get sore fingers from time to time. Obviously, if you've got that disciplined practice, you're going to get your fingers toughened and you're not going to have the problem as often as possible. But if you do take a break, don't worry about it. Come back, play the guitar. You might find a couple of days later you're getting a little bit sore. Rest for a day and then continue again. You'll soon pull it back. It's one of those things that's there, and it's unfortunately, it goes with the territory. You're going to play a guitar, you'll get sore fingers from time to time. It's not a bad thing to take a day off and have a break from it. Don't go through this pain barrier of, oh, my fingers are killing and I can't do anything. Just get to that stage where there's a little bit of soreness there if you've missed, and then drop back on and after a day or so and see how you go, and you'll find that you'll start to pull it back in no time at all. So number 10, right, the final one in my top 10 after giving you the sore fingers one, which was a number 9. Number 10 is right hand practice only. Oh yes, you've got to practice using your right hand, and that is brilliant, because what that tends to do is focus the brain's content. Is when we're playing an instrument, we're multitasking. We're trying to play two things. We're trying to play chords and rhythmic content with the right hand. But what we find that's very difficult to do is separate these two things. If we look at the scale that I played before, if you listen to the pick, what this pick does, it goes. Now, if I play it without the chord, the scale shape, we get. Hear the difference. So if I cycled that round and went. Now listen to the picking pattern. Now that takes a lot of focus to think on that, because I'm visualizing the melody of the scale shape that I'm playing, and that is because we're used to working with the left and right hands together. If you can play that picking pattern or any chord shapes, any strumming patterns without worrying too much about this hand, then you're going to find that the focus of your brain, your concentration, is purely on the one element, the picking or the strumming of it. Again, with the strumming pattern, I would maybe work on something like that. I'm not worrying about the chords. It's all about keeping that concentration and making the thing that you're focusing on simpler. If you keep it simple, it's easier to learn. You retain the information. It's like this. Once we've got a G, C, and a D chord, I'm playing a G, C, and a D chord now. I'm practicing it. My brain is absorbing those skills. That's still a form of practice. The only thing that changes it is when I actually add the strumming to it. So practice the chords in isolation, and then practice the right hand in isolation. Okay, so that's number 10. Split things up, simplify it, make it easier, and you'll find that with a combination of a lot of those tips, you should find that your technique will improve quite significantly, which again unlocks the key to, it gives you the keys to the Ferrari, as they say, and enjoy the journey. Okay, so that's it from this week's live stream. You know how it works now. I always say give the YouTube channel a subscribe if you can. It's much appreciated, and I'm trying to get as much content out to everybody as possible. All you guys, yay, on Instagram, same with you. If you give me a like and whatever it is you do on Instagram, a like and thumbs up and all those bits and bobs, that'd be great. And same for the fans on the people that like to log in, all me students and everybody that's out there on Facebook land as well. If you want to give it a thumbs up, it's great. And it's much appreciated when you tune in and watch these types of things with me, and I'll try and keep as much as possible. Like all my socials, PM me with any questions, anything to do with guitar, singing, music production. I am running music production grades now, where you can come into the studio and learn how to produce music and mix and master your own tracks as well. So you can check that out on the Arena Studio website, which is www.arenastudio.co.uk. So that's it. I'm going to open a tin of soup now and ding it in my microwave and eat that before my next student comes in at 6 o'clock. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week at 5:30 for another live Q&A. Okay, see ya. Bye. How do we close that one down? Not sure. Oops, what have we done there? Let's see. End that. Bye, Facebookers.